Bullies threw dog poop into his backpack during lunch break. Big mistake. They thought he'd never find out, but his revenge shocked everyone. Isaac Myers trudged through the crowded hallways of Westfield High with his shoulders hunched, trying to make himself as small as possible. At 15, he was painfully aware of how he stood out. Thin-framed with gangly limbs that he hadn't grown into yet, thick glasses that magnified his hazel eyes, and a mop of unruly brown hair that never seemed to cooperate, no matter how much he tried to tame it. The pocket protector in his shirt, and the calculator watch on his wrist, completed the stereotypical nerd image that made him such an easy target. But what nobody at Westfield knew was that beneath the awkward exterior was a 3-time junior state champion in mixed martial arts. For 6 years, Isaac had trained religiously at his uncle's dojo across town, mastering various fighting styles with a dedication that had earned him respect in tournaments across the state. His bedroom walls were lined with trophies and medals that no one at school would ever believe belonged to him. Isaac's parents had always encouraged him to use his skills only for self-defense, a principle he took seriously. "Hey, look who it is! If it isn't Calculator Boy." The booming voice of Devin Richards echoed down the hallway. At 16, Devin was already 6'2" with broad shoulders from playing football. His dark hair was always perfectly styled, and his designer clothes made it clear his family had money. As captain of the football team and son of the school board president, Devin thought the school belonged to him. Following closely behind were his two shadows, Marcus Tate, nearly as tall but leaner with a permanently smirking face, and Tyson, Beck, shorter but stocky with a buzz cut that emphasized his square jaw and mean eyes. Isaac kept his eyes forward, quickening his pace slightly. "Just keep walking. Don't engage. It's not worth it." Isaac had been at Westfield High for only 3 months, having moved from another state when his father got a new job. From day one, Devin and his crew had singled him out, starting with snide comments about his clothes and gradually escalating to tripping him in the cafeteria and knocking books from his hands. Mr. Reynolds, the math teacher who seemed to be the only staff member who noticed, occasionally told them to knock it off, but never followed through with any real consequences. The other students typically fell into 2 categories, those who looked away uncomfortably and those who laughed, along, relieved they weren't the targets. Among them was Emma Sanchez, a quiet girl from his AP chemistry class who sometimes gave him sympathetic looks, but never intervened. "I think he's ignoring you, Devin," Marcus taunted, stepping into Isaac's path. Isaac sidestepped smoothly, a movement that came from years of training, though he made it look clumsy. "I need to get to class," he said quietly, adjusting his glasses. Tyson shoved him against the lockers. "What's the rush, nerd? Got some equations to solve?" Isaac's muscles tensed instinctively, his body wanting to counter the move, but he forced himself to remain passive. His uncle had always emphasized that fighting was the last resort. Besides, he couldn't risk being expelled. His parents had moved specifically for his father's job, and they were finally stable after years of financial struggle. "Please, just leave me alone," Isaac said, hating how pathetic he sounded. "Leave me alone," Devin mimicked in a high-pitched voice, drawing laughs from nearby students. "What are you going to do about it, huh?" The warning bell rang, saving Isaac from having to respond. He slipped away as the trio was momentarily distracted, hurrying into his English classroom. As he slid into his seat, his heart was pounding, not from fear, but from the effort of restraining himself. During lunch, Isaac sat alone at the far end of a table in the cafeteria, as usual. He had just opened his brown paper bag when a chocolate milk carton exploded next to his tray, splashing across his white shirt and the homework he'd been reviewing. "Oops," Devin said with mock innocence as he walked by, Marcus and Tyson snickering behind him. "My bad." Isaac stared down at his ruined work, his jaw clenched. 3 months of this treatment was wearing on his patience. Every day it took more restraint not to show them exactly what he was capable of. In gym class that afternoon, Coach Bryant divided them into teams for basketball. Predictably, Isaac was chosen last, with Tyson groaning dramatically. "Do we have to take him?" "Yes, Tyson, that's how teams work," Coach Bryant said, already turning away to check something on his clipboard, completely missing the way Tyson deliberately elbowed Isaac hard in the ribs as they moved to their side of the court. Throughout the game, Devin's team made a point of targeting Isaac, setting hard screens, never passing to him even when he was open, and at one point Devin accidentally threw the ball directly at Isaac's face. Only Isaac's quick reflexes allowed him to catch it before impact. "Nice catch," Devin said, looking slightly surprised before masking it with a sneer. First athletic thing I've ever seen you do." In the locker room afterward, Isaac changed quickly, trying to avoid further interaction. But as he was about to leave, Marcus stuck out his foot, sending Isaac sprawling across the dirty floor, his glasses skittering away. Laughter erupted around him. "Dude can't even walk right," someone commented. Isaac found his glasses, thankfully unbroken, and left without a word, his hands shaking with suppressed anger. 2 more years of this. Just 2 more years and I'm out of here. The following day was worse. During passing period, Devin knocked Isaac's science project from his hands, shattering the volcano model he'd spent hours constructing. At lunch, someone had written "loser" across his locker in black marker. By last period, Isaac was mentally exhausted from maintaining his composure. As he walked home that afternoon, he heard footsteps behind him and quickened his pace, but it wasn't fast enough. "Where you rushing off to, calculator boy?" Devin called out, jogging up with Marcus and Tyson flanking him. "I'm just going home," Isaac said, not stopping. "We thought we'd walk with you," Marcus said with false friendliness. "Get to know the new kid better." Isaac felt his danger sense spike. They'd never followed him after school before. "I'm fine on my own, thanks." "That wasn't a request," Tyson said, grabbing Isaac's backpack and yanking him backward. Isaac stumbled but caught himself. "What do you want?" he asked, facing them directly for once. "We're bored," Devin shrugged. "And your entertainment." For the next 10 minutes they took turns shoving him, knocking his backpack off and mocking everything from his clothes to his voice. Isaac endured it silently, counting backward from 100 in his head, a technique his uncle had taught him for maintaining control. When they finally grew bored and left, Isaac sat on the curb for a long moment, breathing deeply. That night, he punched his heavy bag for 2 hours straight, imagining Devin's face with each impact. The discipline of his training was the only thing keeping him from snapping. For the next 2 weeks, the torment continued. Exclusion, mockery, and accidental physical contact that was anything but. Isaac kept his head down and focused on his classes, where at least he excelled. His straight A's and advanced placement were areas where Devin and his cronies couldn't touch him. Then came the day everything changed. It started like any other Thursday. Isaac arrived early to work on a chemistry lab report in the library. The morning passed uneventfully, leading him into a false sense of security. By lunchtime, he had almost convinced himself it might be a peaceful day. He should have known better. Isaac had just set his backpack down on a bench outside the cafeteria and turned away to throw something in the trash when he felt a presence behind him. He spun around to see Tyson walking away with a strange smile. Scanning the area, he noticed Devin and Marcus watching from a distance, poorly concealing their laughter. Something was wrong. Isaac approached his backpack cautiously. It looked the same, but when he reached for it, he noticed it was slightly unzipped. As soon as he lifted it, he knew something was off. There was a faint but disgusting odor emanating from it. Still, he had no choice. The warning bell had already rung, and he needed his calculus textbook for next period. He cautiously slung the bag over his shoulder and started walking to class. He'd taken no more than 3 steps when he felt something warm and wet seeping through his shirt. The smell hit him a second later, foul, unmistakable, and horrifying. He froze, reaching back to touch his shirt, his fingers coming away brown and foul. "Oh my God, he's got shit all over him." Marcus shouted loud enough for everyone in the vicinity to hear. The laughter was instantaneous and overwhelming. Students pointed, covered their noses, and stepped back dramatically. Someone gagged loudly. Phones came out, recording his humiliation. Isaac stood there, the reality of what had happened sinking in. They had filled his backpack with dog excrement. His books, his notes, his laptop, all of it was now contaminated with filth. And worse, it was all over him, soaking through his shirt and dripping down his back. "Looks like Calculator Boy had an accident," Devin called out, his face red with laughter. Maybe he was too busy doing equations to make it to the bathroom. The rational part of Isaac's brain was screaming at him to walk away, to go to the office and call his parents, but something inside him had finally snapped. 3 months of torment, of holding back, of being the bigger person, all of it evaporated in an instant of pure, white-hot rage. He slowly removed his backpack and placed it on the ground. Then, with deliberate calm, he took off his glasses and tucked them into his pocket. "You think this is funny?" he asked, his voice eerily steady. "It's freaking hilarious," Tyson answered, wiping tears of mirth from his eyes. Isaac nodded slowly. "Then you'll really enjoy what happens next." Something in his tone made Devin's smile falter slightly. "What are you going to do, cry to the principal?" "No," Isaac said quietly. "I'm done holding back." He moved so quickly that most onlookers didn't even see what happened. One moment he was standing there, covered in filth and seemingly defeated. The next, Tyson was on the ground, clutching his stomach and gasping for air. The crowd fell silent, shock replacing amusement. Marcus recovered first, lunging forward with a wild punch. Isaac sidestepped it effortlessly, caught Marcus's extended arm, and used his own momentum to flip him over his hip. Marcus landed hard on his back, the impact knocking the wind out of him. Devin stared, momentarily frozen by the sudden turn of events. Then his face contorted with rage. "You're dead, nerd," he bellowed, charging forward. Isaac settled into a fighting stance, his movements now fluid and precise. Gone was the awkward, shuffling gait. This was a different person entirely. Balanced, controlled, dangerous. Devin threw a heavy right hook that would have done serious damage if it had connected, but Isaac wasn't there anymore. He had ducked under the punch and delivered two lightning-fast jabs to Devin's ribs, followed by a sweep that took the larger boy's legs out from under him. Devin hit the ground hard, but scrambled back up quickly, his face red with exertion and humiliation. "What the hell?" he gasped. By now Tyson had regained his feet as well, and both he and Marcus converged on Isaac from different angles. The crowd had formed a circle, their phones still recording, but the laughter was gone. Isaac moved with the practiced precision of someone who had spent thousands of hours training. He blocked Tyson's punch, countered with an elbow strike that sent the stocky boy staggering backward, then spun to catch Marcus's kick and use it to topple him once more. Devin came in again, more cautious this time. He feinted left, then threw. A right cross followed by a left hook. Isaac parried the first punch, slipped the second, and then launched a perfectly executed roundhouse kick that caught Devin on the side of his head, sending him sprawling. "Stay down," Isaac warned, breathing. Slightly harder but still composed. "I don't want to hurt you more than necessary," but Devin's pride wouldn't let him quit. He roared and rushed forward again, swinging wildly. This time Isaac didn't hold back. He blocked, stepped inside Devin's guard, and delivered a devastating combination. Two strikes to the body, followed by an uppercut that snapped Devin's head back and sent him crashing to the ground. Marcus tried one last desperate attack, but Isaac countered it easily, taking him down with a textbook judo throw that left him groaning on the pavement. Tyson, seeing his friends defeated, backed away with his hands raised. "We're done," he muttered. "We're done." The entire confrontation had lasted less than 2 minutes. Isaac stood in the middle of the circle, still filthy from their prank, but completely in control. The crowd was absolutely silent, processing what they had just witnessed. 3 years, Isaac said, looking down at Devin, who was trying to sit up, blood trickling from his nose. "I've been a state champion for 3 years. I train 6 days a week. I could have done this at any time." He looked around at the stunned faces. "I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to be left alone." Mr. Reynolds pushed through the crowd, his face a mask of shock. "What on earth is going on here?" Several students began talking at once, pointing. At Isaac's ruined backpack, at the 3 boys on the ground, at Isaac himself. "They put dog feces in his backpack, sir." Emma's voice rose above the others. She stepped forward, phone in hand. "I have it on video. They've been tormenting him for months, and today they went too far." Other voices joined in, suddenly brave enough to confirm her account now that the power dynamic had shifted. Isaac said, "Nothing," the adrenaline fading and the reality of what had just happened beginning to sink in. "All of you to the principal's office," Mr. Reynolds said firmly, "and someone get the nurse." As Isaac followed the teacher, he noticed the way the crowd parted for him, the looks of awe and respect replacing the previous indifference or contempt. It wasn't how he had wanted to be known, but perhaps now, at least, the torment would stop. In the principal's office, with his parents called in and the evidence mounting against the 3 bullies, Isaac waited quietly. His father had brought him clean clothes, and he had been allowed to shower in the gym. Now sitting outside Principal Davis's office, he could hear raised voices inside. Devin's father was apparently unwilling to accept that his son could be responsible for such behavior. Emma sat down beside him, surprising him. "That was amazing," she said quietly. "I had no idea you could fight like that." Isaac shrugged. "It's not something I advertise." "Why did you let them bully you for so long if you could do that?" "My uncle always taught me that fighting is the absolute last resort, that my skills are for protection, not intimidation." He sighed. "I probably should have walked away today, too, but..." "No," Emma said firmly. "They deserved it. Everyone saw what they did to you." The door to the principal's office opened, and Devin emerged with his father, both looking grim. Devin's eyes met Isaac's briefly, before darting away, a bruise already forming on his jaw. Principal Davis called Isaac in next. The meeting was long and detailed, with Isaac explaining everything from the first day of harassment to the final incident. By the end, it was clear that Devin, Marcus, and Tyson would face serious consequences: suspension at minimum, possibly expulsion for Devin, who had been the ringleader. "Violence is never the answer, Mr. Myers," Principal Davis said sternly. "However, given the circumstances and the testimony of multiple witnesses, we understand this was an extreme situation. You'll serve detention for fighting, but there will be no further punishment." Isaac's parents were quiet on the drive home until his father finally spoke. "I'm not happy you resorted to fighting, Isaac, but I understand why you did. Your uncle will probably have some words for you at training tomorrow." "I know," Isaac said, looking out the window. "I lost control, but it felt, I don't know, necessary finally." His mother reached back to squeeze his hand. "Just promise me you won't make a habit of it." "I won't need to," Isaac said, and he believed it. The next day at school was surreal. The video of the fight had circulated widely, and suddenly everyone knew who Isaac was. People who had never spoken to him were nodding respectfully as he passed. A few even apologized for not stepping in sooner. At lunch, instead of sitting alone, he found himself surrounded by classmates eager to hear about his training. Emma sat beside him, occasionally steering the conversation away when people got too focused on the fight itself. "Is it true you're a state champion?" someone asked. Isaac nodded reluctantly, 3 times. "Different weight classes as I grew." "Why hide it?" another student wondered. "I never hid it," Isaac replied. No one ever asked. Over the next few weeks, school transformed for Isaac. He was no longer invisible or a target. People respected him, not just for his fighting skills, but because they'd seen him pushed to his absolute limit and still show restraint. He could have hurt the 3 bullies much worse than he did, and everyone knew it. Devin, Marcus, and Tyson returned from their suspensions subdued and avoided Isaac entirely. Once, Isaac caught Devin watching him in the cafeteria with an unreadable expression. The next day, Devin approached him after class, hanging back until they were alone. "I want to say, what we did was messed up," Devin said stiffly, not quite meeting Isaac's eyes. "Especially the backpack thing, that was too far." Isaac studied him, trying to determine if the apology was genuine. "Why me? From day one. Why target?" "Me?" Devin was quiet for a moment. "You were an easy target. Or I thought you were." He shook his head. "My dad's always talking about being the alpha, about asserting dominance. Stupid stuff. And you were new, and..." He trailed off. "Different," Isaac supplied. "Yeah," Isaac considered this. "I appreciate the apology, but words are easy. Show me you mean it by how you act going forward." Devin nodded and walked away. Whether he would actually change remained to be seen, but at least it was a start. As for Isaac, he continued his training but now invited others to join him. He started a small self-defense club at school with Mr. Reynolds' sponsorship, teaching basic techniques to anyone interested. Emma became one of his most dedicated students. "Not all confrontations can be solved with a roundhouse kick," he told the group during their first session. "In fact, most of them shouldn't be. The best fight is the one you avoid entirely." That philosophy had been tested to its breaking point, but he still believed in it. Sometimes standing up for yourself meant using your voice. Sometimes it meant walking away, and sometimes, rarely, it meant drawing a line that could not be crossed. As the semester progressed, Isaac found himself with actual friends for the first time since moving. People who liked him for who he was, not what he could do. The incident faded from immediate gossip, though it had become something of a school legend already. One afternoon, as he was demonstrating a basic block to the self-defense group, he caught sight of Tyson watching from the doorway. Instead of the hostility he expected, there was something like curiosity in the other boy's expression. Isaac nodded slightly in acknowledgement, and after a moment's hesitation, Tyson nodded back before walking away. It wasn't friendship, but it was respect, and sometimes that was enough. Later that night, as Isaac practiced forms in his bedroom, he reflected on how quickly everything had changed. The medals and trophies that had once been his private achievement were now known to everyone. The skills he had kept hidden were now on display. But most importantly, he had learned something vital about himself, that there was a difference between avoiding conflict and accepting mistreatment. Standing up didn't mean becoming what you fought against. It meant knowing your worth and insisting others recognize it too. Sometimes that required words, sometimes actions, but it always required courage, and that perhaps was the most important lesson of all.